Michigan State and Wisconsin. Wisconsin wins this one 81-66. Friday night, it was not a good situation in the Kohl Center. The other day on the podcast, we kept calling it the Kohl Center. It is the Kohl Center for Wisconsin. And Wisconsin just kind of had their way in this one. Izzo kind of looked out of sorts. I don't know what in the world he's thinking playing two bigs. Tom Izzo, the strength of your team is not the front court. So, maybe don't play two of them at one time. Xavier Booker looked good. Kohler looked good on offense, but this is still a team searching for some front court identity, while Wisconsin is just literally firing on all cylinders right now. You have any type of weakness in your game, and it seems like Wisconsin can exploit that in some way, shape, or form. And AJ Storr is starting his campaign to be the backup player of the conference behind Zach Edey. So, I mean, that's the race right now, right? It's not who's the player of the conference. Zach Edey is going to be it, but who's going to be behind him? And AJ Storr's making a good run for that because he's just playing at a really high level right now. Frank, I'm curious your thoughts on the Wisconsin-Michigan State game.
I mean, it's hard to talk about this game and not just immediately go to AJ Storr, man. Just what a performance. 28 points, 68% true shooting, scoring at all three levels. 6 for 9 from 2, 3 from 8 from 3. Not the best numbers from 3, but 7 for 8 at the line. I mean, but honestly, on paper, this game came down to rebounding, in my opinion. Michigan State only rebounded 58% of Wisconsin's missed shots. That's not great. That's not going to win you games. You want to see that number around 75% or higher. But I think it's been an adjustment for me this season, and that this isn't your run-of-the-mill typical Wisconsin team. Where you've got two big set an elevator screen for one shooter and something like that. I mean, they're getting out in transition. They're attacking guys off the dribble. I mean, this is a fun team. And in a previous life, we did weekly power rankings, and another member of the podcast and I did shows, and people thought we were crazy earlier in the season when we put Wisconsin at number 2 early in the season. But there's who's laughing now, right? I just think that Wisconsin had their way in this game. They had a 133 offensive rating against the Michigan State team that going into the game was a top 20 KenPom defense team. I mean, they are good, but they got out to an early lead. Michigan State kept it close there for a little while, and they just stretched it out and never looked back. And I think I'm not being too crazy here when I say that Michigan State is probably a bubble team. I mean, if not erring on the side of maybe not making the tournament right now. I mean, and they've just got some personnel issues to figure out. I mean, like I said, they're playing multiple bigs. Tom Izzo's under a lot of heat right now. It's last time I was on, you asked if it was panic time for Michigan State, and at the time I said no, but it's past panic time at this point. But it was just a fun game. It was fun to watch Wisconsin just kind of have their way. I honestly didn't expect it. I thought Michigan State would make some adjustments, having already played them once, but it just didn't go that way, unfortunately, for them.
Yeah, I mean, Michigan State's in a position right now where they really Net still likes them. KenPom still likes them, so they obviously have that. I feel like if they are a bubble team, the committee's just going to go ahead and put them in because it's Tom Izzo. It's the, what the record of tournaments made and all that stuff. So they're going to get the benefit of the doubt if they're right there, but they have to be right there. And if they keep losing at these point differentials, then they're not going to be there. Before the show started, we talked about the importance of point differentials, or what we think is the importance of point differentials in some of these ratings. And this is not 81-66. It's not the worst loss in the world. We're going to talk about a team who lost by a lot more later on. But still, it's not going to help Michigan State if they are losing all of these big games. I mean, quad 1 games, 2-7. Give them credit. They're playing a lot of quad 1 games, but look at it. Wisconsin has played the same number and they're 6-3. So, I mean, you can say, oh, well, we've played a lot of hard games, but there's a lot of teams out there who have actually won their hard games, and Michigan State hasn't. So, Sonny, your thoughts on Wisconsin and Michigan State?
It's two teams that just play on a completely opposite wavelength. Michigan State, you never really know which Michigan State's going to show up. They started off the season struggling, then they went on a run where you kind of thought things may be turning around for them, and then they were completely overmatched in that game against Wisconsin. In my opinion, Wisconsin's got the second highest floor in the Big Ten. They know what they do. They play typical Wisconsin ball. And I had Rajiv from Bucky Report, who I know is a guest here frequently. He talked about how Wisconsin's still Wisconsin. What they've always lacked is an athlete. And that's what AJ Storr has essentially brought in. Now, Illini fans who are watching this, they're familiar with Storr because he was a one-time Illini commit. As you mentioned, he's just gotten better every single year. He's a guy I paid attention to in St. John's just because of his initial commitment to Illinois. He's a fantastic player who is just raising the ceiling of what Wisconsin Badger you kind of perceive it to be. Normally it was just a bunch of good fundamental guys, and the team itself would outperform pieces. The whole was larger than the pieces. This year, the pieces are pretty dang good too.
Sorry, I was muted there. The pieces are great, and I think one of the biggest pieces of it, or the biggest piece of it that is kind of changing the Wisconsin basketball is Tyler Wall. I mean, he's not playing that, secondary big role like Frank was talking about, where he, is only that secondary big. He's playing the role in a different way. And John Blackwell has been a tremendous piece to this team as well. This freshman John Blackwell, I don't think Wisconsin is the team they are if they don't have John Blackwell, because this was supposed to be a similar, not the same kind, but a similar player to who Connor Essegian was supposed to be. And Connor's just not been that guy this season. But John Blackwell, the freshman, true freshman, has stepped in and able to fill a role as kind of the sixth man. I don't have the minutes numbers in front of me, but to me, he's their sixth man, making that kind of impact for this team. So AJ Storr, like you said, he's an athletic piece that they needed, and it's crazy how one player can seem to change the entire team just by them adding them. And the nicest part about Wisconsin, it doesn't have to be AJ Storr. It can be Max Klesmit. Max Klesmit had a run earlier in the season. It can be Steven Crowl. I mean, it can be all of these guys. And Chucky Hepburn is just the consistent point guard that you need on the defensive end and on the offensive end to make these kind of things happen. So, Frank, looks like Wisconsin's going to give you guys a run for your money, possibly in the Big Ten. I wouldn't have predicted that. I thought Wisconsin would be a good team. But at the end of the day, I mean, how concerned are you that Wisconsin could win the Big Ten?
I mean, I think it's very likely. I think, from this point forward, scheduling favors Purdue just a little bit more. Yeah. Not by a lot, but just a little bit more. And that, these two teams have yet to meet, assuming that the Big Ten race is Purdue and Wisconsin, which right now it's a fairly safe assumption to say that that's probably the case. But they've yet to meet, they've yet to play. I think that'll determine a lot, this next game between Purdue and Wisconsin. But I'm on a scale of 1 to 10, in terms of 10 is like, I think Wisconsin's going to win it, and 0 means Purdue's definitely got it. I would put it at probably a 6 right now. Like I said, scheduling TBD, but that's the main factor that I think Purdue has going for them. It's just a little bit more favorable schedule.
Well, if Purdue wins both of their games, because they play Wisconsin twice, and one of them is the last game of the season, so that very well could decide it. What are your thoughts, Sonny?
That last week is interesting because our Illinois' third last game of the season is at Wisconsin. Then they play at home senior night against Purdue. And then the last game of the season is against Iowa. So, I mean, if things are close, everything could come down to that final week in the Big Ten, which should be pretty exciting. Also, real quick, any Illini fans watching this, make sure you clip the last minute and a half of this episode of them talking about it being a Purdue and Wisconsin race. We'll see what happens by the end.
Please, I love being proven wrong. So yes, please do. Please, I welcome it. Yeah.
I was going to mention at the end here, don't count Illinois out. Okay, so there's definitely a possibility there. But at the end of the day, you got 8-1 Wisconsin, 8-2 Purdue in the conference, and Illinois is at 6-3, so they're right there. But they definitely need a little bit to turn in their favor. But if you told me Illinois is going to win out, or maybe just win or lose 1 or 2 more games in the conference, I could see it happening. So Illinois is going to be right there as well. It's going to be a fun race to see until the end. All right, thanks for listening to the Big Ten Huddle. Please do like and subscribe. We appreciate that. If this was your first time listening, we are the Big Ten Huddle. We cover all things Big Ten football and basketball. We have a long episode every Sunday, Tuesday, and Wednesday night, all at 9 o'clock. So come in, check us out. Get in the chat. Let us know what you're thinking. We would love to have you join us and learn more about the Big Ten.